Hi, Martin. Good to see you.
And you, yes. So it's an interesting subject because I know nothing about Macedonia at all. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Me either. And actually, Maria, that she puts plural in brackets. So, so we're going to have, really real discoveries today. Professor Tree, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining. Lovely to see you. I know that's 11 p.m. I know it's 11 p.m. in Ho Chi Minh City. Trust me, it's a great honor that you're going to meet midnight with us.
Yes.
Midnight next week already. So that's great. That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I need just to check that you can share your screen.
Okay.
Professor Tree, you would go first if you don't mind, right? Because I
Yeah,
appreciate that it's very late, and if you decide to, disconnect and go to bed, that's absolutely understandable. So
Yeah. Okay.
please
Yes.
do.
Thank
Okay,
you.
that's
I will
great.
share
So
my
that's
screen. Yeah.
yeah, we're still waiting for more people definitely to come. So I did send the invitation to IBM students as well. So there should be hopefully other people from Vietnam who are going to support you. I believe help you to answer the questions of the audience about Vietnam, because that's absolutely fascinating as well to learn more about your country.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Great.
Yes.
That looks great.
Yeah.
Professor, if you just stop sharing for a while, because I will have to. Yeah, let's wait a couple more minutes, so that will be good. I see Alemo, Vincent joined. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor.
So you have me the second day in a row, right?
Yes.
We can't have enough. We can't have enough.
Thank you. I hope it's not that tiring. Professor Tree, would you stop sharing, please? Because then I will. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Then I will see more people. No hurry. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Right. Okay. So let's wait a little bit more. It's absolutely beautiful in Oxford. You see the sun shining when I don't need it to shine.
Welcome, our shelter. Welcome.
Hello, shelter. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. We have Shanti joining us. Hi, Shanti. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Lovely. And Sean is with us. That's great. Hi, Sean. Carmela, Nico. Excellent. So we are expecting more students to join. Pia, do you believe that students remember, or I should send again the link, or maybe you could, should I send it again, Pia?
I can put it in the groups app if you would like
if you could,
yeah.
If you could share it again, just that it's easier, straight from WhatsApp, just to get to the conference. Lovely. So let's wait a couple more minutes.
Good afternoon, Prof, and the colleagues.
Hello, David. Good to see you. Mashilo, how would you prefer? Would you like me to call you David or Mashilo? I remember you liked previously. So
Mashilo,
exactly. Okay, so what has changed that you have David instead of Mashilo now? Any changes? Any changes in your life? Okay, that's great. Thank you for joining, Mashilo. Right. Okay. So let's wait a little bit more, and we can definitely start. I'm waiting for the second presenter. Fingers crossed. We are lucky because we have two remarkable speakers today. Pia, thank you very much. Yes, I can see that. Right, and we've got Matt joining us. That's wonderful. So just to remind again, the format of these colloquiums is just a roundtable discussion, right? So any questions are great, first of all, and we would all together try to answer them. And I believe that such sessions are particularly important because first, they make us curious. And second, nobody's really an expert. Well, we do have experts, I should admit that. But at the same time, we have, or have the right, if you wish, to have our voices heard. And that's the platform for that. So please do not be shy. Please go ahead, ask any questions. And, that's why we meet actually every Sunday. almost every Sunday. Right. Okay, brilliant. So I see more friends and, you know, colleagues and students, and that's brilliant. Matt, looking good. This
Hello.
red color definitely suits you. So COVID behind, right?
Yeah.
So you're a winner. That's great, Matt. That's really great. Congratulations. Full recovery. We wish
Yeah, I
you,
recovered.
if you still have some.
Recovered, but unfortunately my
Okay.
family has been infected. So still quarantined, but I'm still working on it. Thanks, Toni.
Yes, and I understand. Edward, where are you joining us from?
I am joining you from my home in Nagoya in central Japan, where it's a cold and clear 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, 1 o'clock already. So you're very, yes. So Professor Tree, you see, 11 p.m. does not impress us that much. You know? Some people join us at 1 a.m. actually. So
this is
right.
this is the advantage of having students who have been in the military, because the time doesn't matter. We work whenever we work whenever we have to.
Well, okay. Thank you for this remark. Yes, but I believe not only military people are like that. Some people are just thirsty for knowledge, Edward, no matter what profession or, you know, occupation is. So we are like that. Those who are not in the military, of course. Right. Okay. So let me start. Let me try to be punctual, you know, like a pro-British citizen, and say welcome, dear friends, dear colleagues, dear students, even family members, because my daughter promised to join us today. So that's lovely, absolutely lovely to see you again on Sunday at Sunday Colloquium, where we make the world closer. And today I really mean it, because again, thanks to our two remarkable speakers, we are going to learn more about two, I think, kind of mysterious countries. One is Vietnam, and the other one is Macedonia. Okay. Just a couple of housekeeping rules, okay, before I introduce our remarkable speakers. I would appreciate if you have your mics off. That would help us to provide good quality of the sound. And the second, since you are with us, I believe that by this, you express your consent for recording this session. Okay, you can choose the mode of participation. You can switch off your cameras. That would be absolutely fine. Although I should be honest, and it's much more pleasant to see your faces, beautiful faces, and yeah, and just give a thought how you would like your name to be written. If for whatever reasons you would prefer not to have the full name, you can put a nickname as ever you like. Right, so again, thank you and welcome. And today we have two remarkable speakers, and one speaker is Professor Nguyen Duc Tri, and he's the Dean of School of Tourism at University of Economics of Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Professor Tri, thank you again for joining.
Thank you.
And the second remarkable speaker, who I still do not see, by the way, but I have just been on phone with her, so she is going to join. That's Marija Lazarev Zivanovic, and she's a consultant. She's a Swiss accreditation consultant at Christian Daujat consultancy in Geneva, I believe, and she is going to tell us about Macedonia. So please, Professor Tree, I suggest that you start. We have our pens ready with the pieces of paper, you know, for taking notes and getting ready to ask you tricky questions maybe about Vietnam and business etiquette in there. So, Professor, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santalova, and thank you very much for your attention. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So I'm going to do the presentations on business etiquette in Vietnam. So I share my my screen. you know, when I register for this particular topic, I'm thinking about on how to, let's say, come and let's say you are going to Vietnam and doing business, and what kind of manner that you should use in order to be effective in your business visit. But then I think again, if I present that particular things, and you know, you could always find somewhere on the internet, and you know, with that kind of knowledge. So this is why I moved to look at the different angle. So I approached in Hofstede about culture, you know, because this is a very systematic approach to culture, the differences of culture in from country to country. So I picked up, and you can see on the screen about 6 different dimensions of Vietnamese culture. So we have a high power distance, low in individualism, about middle or in the average of masculinity, low in uncertainty avoidance, a bit high on long-term orientation, and you know, somewhere about 35 points of indulgence. So I use this one as my main backbone for the presentation. So I will follow this structure and present to you on the way that we think or behave in business. First, for the power distance, you know, I look into one of the signs, and I said that in a power distance country, people in a higher power distance are more likely to accept that there are some powerful people who could be in charge, and that they are entitled to special benefit. And this is a very interesting dimensions. And when I look at it into Vietnam, and I say that in Vietnam we are likely to think that the high rank people can do the unpopular things because they are having a special power. You know, this is a quite popular in Vietnam. You know, people in a high rank, so they could decide to do things that they like, but not the other way to the whole lower rank people. So in fact, we don't like that kind of behavior. But then we normally don't debate about it. You know, first, probably because of the political you know, atmosphere. So we don't normally openly debate about it. But then we recognize that there is exists in the country. So that's the first thing about the power distance. The second, okay, let me see how to move. Yeah. The second dimension is individualism. Vietnam is actually a society of collectivist country. We have the culture that we believe on the consensus. So consensus is important in Vietnam, and it creates a kind of solidarity that is a value as a critical factors in any organization. You know, we think that the solidarity first and the business later. So organization that is without solidarity is not a good organization to do business with. You know, so that is kind of a common sense in Vietnam. So normally when we have a kind of a decision, normally we met it in a group of people, and then someone who are influencing the person would go to make the final choice or final decisions on the discussion. So this is the way that we do, and it is a very common, you know, when we could have a kind of a long debate, but finally there should be someone who conclude on the discussion. normally, of course, it is often to see the people who have a different idea. Yeah, but normally, if we find ourselves is different from the rest of the group, we better not to say about that, but wait for the group to make a decision, and we use other way to approach. Let's say outside of the meeting. The reason that we have to do so because we want to avoid a situation where people feel that they lose face because of the different idea, or perhaps our idea is better than theirs idea. So this is why we we try to give face for the people in the group. I give you here some example on why we say that Vietnam is a collectivist society. In a diagram that you see right here, let's say we have a successful businessman. So what he does in the family, so he would build some small business for his wife first. Okay, the reason that we have to build because he wants to share the success to his family member, but his wife, the first one who received that share. Then he built the next one for his children, their children, and then he built the next one for the children again, if he is still able, and then if he still continue to grow himself, and then he built the next one for the children. So just the time could be prolonged so many times. So the reason we think so because we want to build a kind of a big family, and everyone have are able to enjoy the success of one member in a family. One member success that could bring the success to other members, and we think about the next generation. This is why he are going to build as many new businesses to the children as possible, and with the help of his wife, because his wife now could have a business herself as well. So that is the way we think. So we call it is a nuclear family business, and it happened for quite popular. This model is quite popular in Vietnam. When we go to Vietnam, let's say a foreigner going to Vietnam to make a business, normally you take a bit of time to make acquaintance to the local culture. But if, let's say, someone who knows the Vietnamese partner and introduce you to him or her, then you can make acquaintance quickly, more quickly, and that would help a lot. And people would open to do business with you because of that relationship. So again, that is reflections of collectivism in Vietnamese. We mean collectivism because let's say we trust the new partner because we have the good relationship with the one who introduced the new partner to us. Yeah, so this is what I just mentioned about. Let's say we sit in a meeting, we have a different idea from the rest of the group, and then we should not, let's say, of course, if we could speak out and try to find a way to speak softly, so that people don't see a kind of contradiction with the idea between ours and the rest of the group. Okay. Otherwise, we try to approach from outside of the meeting. Rather than going to, let's say, let's join something that people agree upon. So that is the way we handle the meeting. So we value the solidarity. What we mean in solidarity is, when we are in a group, we should better to be as a good members of the group, rather than being someone who are on the other side of the in the opposite side of the group. Okay, again, in another aspect of collectivism, the negotiation can be very slow because we have to, let's say, today perhaps we agree on one point, and then we continue the next day or the following day and then we find out a newer point, and then we just continue with that kind of process. So it takes a bit of time. And normally when we make a decision, we have to go through a kind of a long process with many members. And this is why it takes a bit of time of conclusions in the negotiations. So again, that is very popular in Vietnam, in our country. Masculinity. It is a cultural traditions, I guess. I put in here, let's say if in a family, a man has to be the breadwinner. And if he is not, then you know, we find that or that person or that man would feel sorry to others, because he feel that he's not a kind of a right characters in a family, because he could not feed the family, had to be fed by a woman, and that is what we think. So the man in the family, normally we try as hard as possible, because we have to be in a way that, you know, we have to be a breadwinner in a family rather than being fitted by a woman. So that what we mean by masculinity. So I put in here, we rather work to death than being fitted by a woman. Okay, so that is the masculinity in our culture. Keeping face. Now, if you go to meeting, it is quite popular to see that people don't speak much. Or even like if you go to class in Vietnam, for instance, people don't speak in the class much. Of course, you could ask them question, but then they just give the answer right to the question without debating and so on. So people quite silent. And in meeting, it is quite the same too. You know, the reason that we are keeping silent, because, you know, we don't know whether our idea is go along with somebody else's idea, you know, so because of the solidarity that I mentioned earlier, so people you know, of course they prepare the idea, but then being very careful to speak out. So if our idea is similar to what our idea is similar to the idea of the group, and then of course we could speak out and comfortably. But if it is not, and then we keep silent. And let's say if we have a kind of disagreement with one another, someone in the meeting, we keep even more silence, because we don't want to you know, create a kind of high pressure to the meeting among those people. That is the action that we make in order to keep face for the people in the meeting. So but then if we have let's say newcomers from outside, let's say you know, you are joining, you don't know the group, and then you speak out, and people normally listen to you, and of course you know, they even like follow your idea, and they keep even the idea themselves, they don't speak out, and so they follow your idea. So but then it doesn't mean that the people agree at the end of that procedure. So they come back and they think again about the idea of what you just speaking out. Uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance is a degree, the degree to which the members of the society feel uncomfortable about uncertainty and ambiguity. So into Vietnam, we have a common thought that we say that whatever works is a very popular mindset, meaning that we are very much relying on experience than planning. Okay? I don't know. But comparing to many Europeans, you have a very good planning. You would plan something like years ahead of that work. But we are very bad on that planning. You know, we just do things when it's come to us. Let's say we plan for tomorrow. We plan in a very short time. So normally we rely on experience, and this is why the level of success could be low. But then when we join into the work, and we rely very much on experience, you know, those who have experience could act quickly, and that could be an element that secure the success of that work. So that is a very popular mindset in Vietnam. So when we receive something assigned by somebody, so we do first and we fix later. You know, we say, okay, do first. Okay, don't be reluctant. Just go and do it, and we fix it later. And we also have a mindset saying that the uncertainty is regarded as a common thing in life, and we must accept it. Okay? You know, when we see things, we find that, okay, wherever it is, you know, we have to accept it. So that is a kind of mindset that we have. For the long-term orientation, it is a very popular thinking that the future is better or must be better. Because of where we start, we think that is a, you know, something that we have to do, but we always try to do for the better future. It is why we invest heavily on educations. Of course, you know, I don't mean by the absolute numbers of dollars that we spend, but if we look at the proportion of spending in a family, let's say for among the brothers, sisters, okay, the one in the family that, you know, help to grow the family, the proportion of spending for education is always the biggest proportion, you know, the biggest share within the spending of the family. So that comes first, even before food. You know, many families in Vietnam, you know, they reserve a high priority for even like before the food spending, you know, so they put it for education, and then the next thing would be food and other necessity in the family. The reason that people give a high priority for education because we think that the education could be could make us different, you know, would help us to improve living standard, get a better future, and so on. People say, I found that many friends of mine and, you know, many families, particularly for those in the countryside, you know, they save substantially. Perhaps people live in an urban area, or save as well. But I found that if we look into again the proportion, the people who live in the countryside save a lot. They save it for the next generation. So that is a kind of mindset that we have. It is a very much long-term orientation, and we think that the future is the future of the next generation. They have to be better than our generation. Indulgence is a Vietnamese. You know, we very appreciate the humble behaviors of people, and because of the influence, I guess, influence of Chinese culture, we normally make ourselves socially below the counterpart. Let's say if a guest coming in, or we go to visit someone, so we have to place us somewhere below the status of the one who we visit. I mean the guest, and between the guest and us, you know, we have to be one step lower than the guest. So that is a kind of behavior, or it is a kind of behavior that reflect the politeness other people. If we don't put the other way around, if we put it higher than the guest, that is a very impolite way of behavior. So guest first. Yeah, I think I think that's it. We have this those content, and I would love to receive your questions and comments, and I will try myself to answer. And many friends of mine, perhaps today, are Vietnamese, as a Vietnamese, would help me to share and elaborate more on those points that I just presented. Please.
Professor Tree, thank you very much. A big round of applause, Professor Tree.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was really lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, now we know if we want to be treated really well as guests, that's where we go. Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, that's definitely our destination. But that's quite fascinating. No, really. Thank you very much. Professor Tree, if you stop sharing, then we will see more people, and that will be easier for me kind of to put the questions from the audience. And please, if you want to ask a question, then with these reactions at the bottom, you can put yes, exactly like Maria has just done, and Shanti, and I will see your hand. Or if you prefer to put it in the chat, I will try to manage both. So please do, you can put a line in the chat. Thank you. Maria, go ahead.
I was faster. Thank you very much. So thank you for the presentation. Apologies for entering late. I can blame it on the technology, and it's true. But I know it's rude. However, I'm happy that I could catch most of it, I hope. And what I'm interested in, and I think you can probably add to what you have already presented, is how much of the business etiquette is the communist legacy? Because I also come from the country where I was born in Yugoslavia. It was a communist country, and there was certain business etiquette and the importance of the education, as you explained, that is different from what we have in the countries that are going through a transition or the Western world. So communism and the legacy to a business etiquette. That's my question. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, Maria. Thank you very much. Yes, Professor.
Yes, thank you very much, Marija, for your question. I think the communism does influence on the way people think, and influence a lot on etiquette. We first, we are advised not to speak out openly everything we have in mind, because it is sometimes it is very dangerous. If we speak out something that go against the regime or the communism, so we have to be careful. Let's say if someone who go to Vietnam and say do the survey, for instance, but if that action is done by someone other than Vietnamese, and we have to be careful to give the answer, because we could be the police could go after us and ask us why we give the answer. What are the answers, that particular answer that we give to the foreigners, for instance. So that's the first one.
Absolutely,
yeah. Okay. The next thing is we normally don't speak. We don't debate on politics to someone we don't know. Because we don't know. Just because that content of discussion could be shared to somebody else, and then it is dangerous to us sometimes. Normally we don't speak out. Of course, among the Vietnamese, we could talk about politics, but then within the good friends, and that's it. We don't speak out to someone we don't know much about. So that is the second point. Normally in a communism, communism value a lot of consensus. This means if you show the consensus with the policy, the thing that has been spoken about the communism, then it's good citizen. But if you say something different, then this is not advisable. Right. So these are the point that I think it is the point I think critical. Yes.
Sorry for interruption. So would you say that education is seen by Vietnamese people as the social left, like the main one in the society? And would you say that that's the legacy of the communistic regime?
No,
Right, Marija? So that was the question, right? The education as a social left, right? Because the importance of education.
Of course, if you look in general, education could be valued and focused very much by many communist countries. But I think it is also because of the traditions of Vietnamese. You know, we value education. So without communism, it's still high value. Yep.
Okay, so that's the national feature, rather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Shanti, and thank you, Marija. Shanti.
Hi, Professor Tree. Well done. I love the I love the presentation, and I relate to a lot of things that you have mentioned because I'm also from the eastern part of the world. But I have a question that I thought maybe you should clarify a bit. You said that there was a fear of the unknown, or a culture of like a difference towards the unknown. How does it impact entrepreneurship in your country? Because entrepreneurship is jumping into the unknown off a cliff. So can you explain how does it impact it? Does it impact if it does, or how does it impact it? And how do you overcome that in terms of entrepreneurship?
Thank you, Santi. For the entrepreneurship, I think there is some difference.
Really interesting.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is different from the people in if we look into the country, people in the South normally are more open to business. So the entrepreneurship is highly acceptable in the South, because we have to do something to build a business ourselves. You know, we don't rely much on the government. And so on. Yeah, but then for the people in the North, they stay longer in socialism, and they feel safer. They work for the government. But the people in the South are a bit different, in the sense that we go to build a business ourselves. We think that by doing the business, we don't have to rely on anyone, but we have a chance to help others, and that is a quite popular thinking in Vietnam. We do the business because we could help others. We create a job. We could contribute the countries into the GDP. Helping improve the quality of life of the people and so on. So that is motivations of the people who join into the business as an entrepreneur. Is that the answer to your question?
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Matt, maybe you could add something in response to Shanti's question. So about entrepreneurship and uncertainty. So how people cope with that?
Yeah, well, thank you, Toni. I just want to assert some of the points that Dr. Tree was mentioning. Vietnam has been pretty intriguing for a lot of outsiders and or foreigners, especially when it comes to communism, communist ideology, and business, and entrepreneurship, and everything else. People tend to feel like we're Bolshevik and tend to be politically aware and I would say alert all the time. But when you talk to Vietnamese people, we're not like that, right? Of course, there are ideology followers and ideology advocacy. As long for the Vietnamese government, you can have your own ideology, right? As long as you don't advocate for some ideology that is against the current regime, you're fine. If you don't speak up, you don't go in front of a rally and talk about it, I think you're going to be fine. And in that canvas, I think entrepreneurship for the past many years has been quite flourishing in Vietnam. People nowadays, young people do business all the time. But once you get to a certain corporate size and influence, you're going to be political, whether you like it or not, right? It happens everywhere. So, but yeah, and Vietnam is just another. It's just the same. But of course, we're monitored by governments. We're not monitored by the party. And as long as you don't do anything like to bespoke about your own ideology, and I think you're fine. The opportunities are there for education and for other.
Right. Thank you, Matt. Right. And next one is Steve. Your question.
Hi, Professor. Thank you for your lecture. That was really interesting. You know, I'm here in Cambridge, UK, but
Steve,
yes.
The sound is breaking, Steve. I wonder how come connection is that bad in Cambridge. Would you maybe switch the video because we can't hear you well? Okay, try again.
So I consider myself to be a good friend of Vietnam. I visited the country many times. But I wanted to ask, you know, when you talk about the power distance and the and to some extent, as you know, the masculinity, the consensus building, is it not different between the government sector, so when you're working with government institutions, and the private sector? I think decision-making, in my experience in Vietnam, works slightly differently in both. And you mentioned the difference between, you know, the center of business in the south, Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon, and Hanoi in the north, where the government is. In my experience, those two places, as you mentioned, are very, very different. And the decision-making between government and business and the sort of the business culture is very, very different. What would you say?
Right. Okay, Steve, thank you. Dr. Tree, did you understand the question? Was it heard? I mean, could you hear the question? Okay,
I understand the question.
Private state and power distance, whether that works differently in these two sectors.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Santalova. Thank you, Steve, for the question. Yes, it is different between the government, the people who work for the government and people who work for the private sector. In general, we could say that people who work in private sectors are more open, you know, and people don't care much about, you know, political stuff. Of course, in any organization, there is a kind of a levels of a political atmosphere. People have to care about that. But if we look into, let's say, make a comparison between the government organization and the private organization, people in the private organization are more open. You know, they have more debate and they could accept kind of diverse idea and so on. Especially for those who work for, let's say, the foreign company in Vietnam. You know, let's say for the foreign management. So people are more open. So they tend to be, you know, debating and then try to make the best of the idea of the people, and you know, don't have to be consensus in every occasion. You know, sometimes it could be very different. But for the people who work for the government, of course, you know, they are very much influenced on the way I just mentioned, consensus, because we think that the communism believe very much on solidarity. You know, whatever you the whole group make, and then people have to accept and follow. You know, no more debate, because the more debate, people think perhaps you have a second thought, which is something dangerous for the organization. This is why people have to keep silence and follow others. Okay? And especially for those in a high rank, you know, politically in the organization, they have a stronger voice over the others, and then normally we have to follow. You know, without debate. And if we want to debate, of course, we could do the other way around, let's say on outside or informal atmosphere, so that people will say, oh, okay, so I recognize that you have a good idea. And then that person will come again to the meeting, and a second meeting, for instance, and say he could correct himself. You know, so that could be a way that we do in a meeting. Yeah, yeah, good. I come back
Yes,
to
thank
the
you.
Sophie question because I missed one of the point that she asked me, but I did not understand the question properly. Uncertainty and you know, the entrepreneurship. Yes, if we look, if you go to Vietnam, we find that, you know, the government did not create enough job for everyone, and even the private sector, you know, they don't create much job for everyone. It is why many people have to create a job by themselves, by himself, so have to employ himself or herself. This is why they invest on something. Sometimes it's very small amount of money, but they want to be independent and run the business by him or herself. So yes, it is a very popular in Vietnam now.
Okay, thank you, Professor Tri, for addition to the previous question. And we have actually a very interesting comment from Carmela in the chat box, as you can see, because she says that she finds, first of all, a lot of in common in Philippines, and because it's a kind of community-based society, and she absolutely understands this respect to the elders. And she asks whether there are young entrepreneurs in Vietnam who kind of doubt that, or maybe go against to some extent, you know, the elder who are considered the wisest very often, right, according to cultural norms. So, Mel, thank you. That's the question. And Dr. Tri, Matt has already answered Mel's question, so that there are millennials kind of doubt everything and everybody around the world, and that's quite true. Shelter and Sergio, I see that you have your hands up, and please, I'm asking you to save your questions because I would like to suggest that now we listen to our second speaker today, if you don't mind, okay? Zivanovic is going to present her talk, and let's have kind of, again, the open for questions we don't as well as Vietnam. Don't you mind, Shelter, Sergio? Is it okay? Would you be able to forget your questions?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Not
Sergio, thank you. Shelter, is it
That's
okay?
fine.
Okay,
That's okay,
let's
Doctor.
save that. Thank you so much. So you will be the first line, I remember. Marija, please go ahead. Thank you.
Well, hello. I hope that we will, I don't know whether Professor Duc will still have time to stay until the end. I know it's very late in Vietnam now, but I'm glad we met, and I'm glad I could hear what he had to share with us. It was very, very interesting. My name is Marija. I live in Switzerland, and I will tell you a little bit about my research on the destination competitiveness. I was very happy to see that someone here mentioned competitiveness and young people. I will not be talking about the young people, but I will be talking about something that I found really clinically interesting as a destination. And from what I can see here, the names and the origins of the people, I think it will be even interesting for you unless you have really had an opportunity to visit this particular part of the world. But even so, it's with regards to the politics, the economy and the tourism development, it's one of the underrated places, yet a place with a lot of potential. So without creating more mystery, I will share the screen with my presentation. Okay, I hope you can see it. I will go back to the first. Okay, is Antonina? It's okay, great. Okay, so my research was about I found later with the COVID that it was also very privately important to me, because I could see the difference in natures of the people. So you have people who want to collaborate when the crisis come, and they say, okay, I have this as a source, you have this, why don't we match and live out of it? And you have people who are more secretive, competitive, more masculine. I think it's about, more man is looking into protecting a territory and being more competitive and doing what I have better than somebody next to me. So the reason why I'm saying this is because, as you can see, I'm talking about Macedonias. So it's one region. For those of you who know it, it's situated, beautifully situated in the center of Europe, in Balkans, southeastern part of Europe. You can see here the border between the Republic of Macedonia and the Greek Macedonia, but the entire region is called Macedonia. Now, what is interesting about it politically is that until 1991, this part, the Republic of Macedonia, was a part of the Socialist Federative Republic of Yugoslavia. I think we are more or less all familiar with that part of the history of the 20th century. And once the Republic of Macedonia gained independence in 1991, in the north, we have other republics. I didn't want to spend too much time on the geopolitical part, but this is when the name of the country became a problem for their neighbor. So never before that, Greeks have actually claimed that they are not happy with Macedonia using this name. The reason is that Greeks truly believe that historically Macedonia as a region is Greek. And there are a lot of important historical figures, as you know, Alexander the Great, his father Philip the Macedonian, who were born here. So for over 2 decades, it was a big problem in the international relations, as you know, Antonina, where Greeks would only allow Republic of Macedonia, and you could see it in Eurovision, in all the sport contests around the world. They could only refer to it as a former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Obviously, Macedonians in this part were not happy with that because they were born in the republic called Macedonia. When they got the independence, there was never an issue with that. And I found this particularly clinically interesting because the tourists don't care about it. For the tourists, all the culture and heritage products that we have, it's demand-led. They want to hear the story. They want the interpretation that they are coming for. So coming to see where Alexander the Great was born, it's in Macedonia. Coming from the United States, you're not really going to spend a lot of time listening to the 2 sides of the story. So my research looked into how all these cross-border parts collaborate with regards to creating their culture and heritage tourism product. And we have Bulgaria here, we have Albania here, we have Serbia, and all these neighbors claim that Macedonia, for historical reasons, for the population that lives in it, actually belongs to them. Albanians, for example, they are a vast majority of the population in the western part of Macedonia. Macedonians are actually almost a minority compared to the other minorities that live there. So through interpretation of the packaging and selection and what kind of storytelling we want to give, this is something that I was trying to look at, and I was trying to see whether there is something put in place with regards to the cross-border collaboration. Also, given that this is a landlocked country, Greece is a very developed destination because they have a coastal part and they are traditionally one of the most important destinations in the world, but not Macedonia, being relatively young, and not the Greek Macedonian part because it's landlocked. So the design for the different groups, we can say that almost the interpretation of culture and heritage is very often individual. Turkish tourists come to visit this part because Kemal Atatürk was born there. So for them, it's a key political figure that created the modern republic after the Ottoman Empire. Serbs come to this part because they visit the Orthodox monasteries, and Skopje is also one of the ancient, or not ancient, but old capital of Serbia in the 13th century under Tsar Dusan. For Bulgarians, even today, it remains, it's almost like a daughter of Bulgaria. They never really accepted fully the independence of it. And for Albanians, there are a lot of ethnic Albanians that live there, and they didn't even want to be a part of the government. So now, if we talk about tourism, why did I want to do my research about it? I gave you a little bit of the taste with regards to how rich this part of the world is with regards to culture and heritage. You have a big Jewish community, you have ancient Greek monuments, you have Muslim religious monuments, Orthodox Christian monasteries that are absolutely outstanding in beauty, museums, and yet in 2014, the Macedonian government decided to invest 500 million euros in building these monuments that I'm showing to you now. So, I mean, you can see some of them are quite funny, and many of them are very modern. And one of the political reasons for building them was, to a certain extent, some of the monuments are representing the minorities that live in Macedonia, but many are built in order to actually go away from the heritage. Why? Because they have a lot of political turmoil in the country. So here, okay, on the first one here, we can see the fallen heroes of Macedonia without really referring to a particular time in history. Here is the archaeological museum, but it's a very recent building. It was finished in 2014. We have the musicians, we have the Fountain of the Mothers of Macedonia without any particular reference to anyone. This is a funny one with the swimmers. You can actually see the feet of the one who jumped before. And we can see here Porta Macedonia that probably refers to the similar monuments in Bucharest and in Paris, but it really doesn't necessarily have its heritage place in Macedonia. Here we can see the Mother Teresa. I'm sure you're all familiar with her. She was also a native born Macedonian. And we can see, for example, Tsar Samuel, who was a Bulgarian Tsar, and who is also very important in today's context. It's important for the Bulgarian minority to have it represented in the recently built monuments. On the right side, we have Saints Clement and Naum, who are historically important figures for the top tourism destination in Macedonia, Ohrid. I will briefly just show you where it's situated on the map, if I can go back. So if we look at Macedonia, we see two big lakes here, and Ohrid is situated here. It's the top destination in terms of the international and the domestic arrivals, but it's also very important as the founding place for one of the biggest universities in the 9th century, founded by Clement and Naum, and also they're considered as very important figures in the Orthodox Christianism. Do I have any other images? Yeah, so more modern one that refers to a local poet and to the art in general. And here we can see some of the images of Ohrid, as I mentioned. Here, a really beautiful, stunning place with a lot of monasteries and churches, with a lot of amazing F&B outlets, which is also very important for the tourism industry. Here we can see the typical architecture of the Ohrid area. And what is important, what I thought would be important, is to actually when you look at the amount of monuments that were built in Skopje in 2014, the images that I've shown earlier, someone would say, but where do you build them in the city center? Most of the time, the city centers are already overwhelmed, and there is very little space left. But what happened in Skopje in 1963 was actually a terrible earthquake that destroyed a lot of the old buildings. So here, this last image is the National Theater and the Kale Fortress before the earthquake in 1963. Actually, to tell you the anecdote, my grandfather was there on the day just before the earthquake happened. He was on a business trip, booked a hotel. He said he went into the hotel and something just pushed him away. He just didn't feel it. He would stay there, and he wasn't a person who was running home very often. He liked his business trips, but here for some reason, you know, he had his instinct saved him, and he ran away. So otherwise, he would have been probably one of the. They say that there was about 1,500 people that died, but 200,000 houses were destroyed, which includes the monuments, the heritage, the cultural sites, and so on. So that explains why these monuments, that's how government justified the investment. Now, if we go to my research, I wanted to understand, why do we invest 500 million into building new ancient monuments? Then it means that all the other culture and heritage and all the other tourism products that we package for people who come from abroad or for the domestic travelers will not be able to use that budget. So I wanted to understand what happens. Is it sufficiently developed? Do they have enough funds from Europe? Do they collaborate with the Greek Macedonia, with Bulgaria and Albania to develop regional clusters, themed routes, to design gastronomy tourism, cultural tourism, and so on? Then I tried to look into different researches. I realized that there isn't sufficient research with regards to the international travelers, and that there isn't sufficient focus on these peripheral areas. As I mentioned earlier, yes, we know all about coastal part of Greece, but not so much about this part of Greece, which is the second most visited area. And what I also found very interesting with regards to the interpretation of culture and heritage, and Professor Nguyen, one of the reasons why I asked you about the communist legacy is the fact that during the communist Yugoslavia, in Macedonia as in other republics, there were a lot of avant-garde monuments built that represented the battle of the people against the fascists in the Second World War. Very avant-garde for their time, and we as the students or kids in the school, we had to go and visit at least once a year these monuments. These monuments have been neglected and nobody was interested in them since the independence in 1991. I think people were sick and tired of it, and they sort of wanted to move into something else and travel into and visit other part of heritage, maybe a heritage that was a bit more, a bit older. But now the Generation Z, they find it interesting. They're the ones who are seeking to visit these avant-garde communist monuments from the 90s, who are literally falling apart. I don't have time and images here to share with you, but they remain avant-garde. And there is a lot of potential in that, not only for the local population, but for the Generation Z from all over the world. So there is still a lot more scope for research. I simply wanted to look in that dissonance of heritage, the difference in the interpretations, because all these minorities, they are not really interested in the story of the other one. They don't necessarily speak the language of the other one. So if you come as an international tourist, you can have a variety of interpretation of the same historic part of the history, of the same monument, depending on who is telling the story, whether it's Turks, Albanians, Macedonians, and so this is something like when you go to Jerusalem. So I was lucky with collecting the data in one way. Nobody refused to talk to me. There are some that forgot or that were very late, but everybody agreed. And I got a good quality data, and I even got the data that I couldn't publish. People were very honest with me, those who are actually involved in the national tourism strategy design, and they told me some things that that I decided not to publish because I realized that it would create a lot of problems for them, but they didn't mind telling me, which I appreciate. So it's sad to see that still in these countries, it's not something that we seriously do, the national tourism strategy. I have also spoken, what I found important for the research was to see how it's perceived from the academic perspective. And I managed to talk to a person who wrote the first book on cultural tourism. So to see with her, to check on whether cultural tourism really exists as such, because in most of the researches, we see that the reason number one why people go to a destination is geography and climate. And apparently the reason number two is culture and heritage. But we come across a lot of different findings and statements elsewhere. Now, with regards to the findings, obviously there is a need for a greater efficiency on the local level and better flexibility. Similarly to what you say is happening in Vietnam, there is still this legacy of communism where people have safe jobs when you work for the state, where you just shouldn't rock the boat too much. You can be as slow as you want. Well, now this mix of entrepreneurial need, if they want to have the funds, they have to submit and ask for the grants in a specific way, filling specific templates. So, and obviously when they collaborate with the neighboring countries, it also requires a different level of investment. But as it's necessary for the tourism clustering and the development, there is a lot of changes, and there are subsidies that exist for the past 10 years, which also made this whole process faster and more successful. There are clusters that exist for wellness tourism, for gastronomy tourism, but it's really, really very young and very weak legs. And obviously with COVID, I remember when I finished my research, I couldn't go to collect the data because literally when I wanted to, it's when the COVID started. So I did everything via Zoom and Skype. It was fine, but I wanted to visit Thessaloniki and Skopje and talk to people there. That's not so sad. Me being there, nobody, it's not going to change the world. But what was sad is that 700 tour guides lost their jobs the moment the COVID started in Macedonia. And since it's a country that is it's a developing country, it's the 6th poorest country in Europe. It's not a place where you have a cash flow, you don't have it for the next 6 or 7 months. People immediately lost their jobs and income. And the state was relatively late in providing sufficient sources for them to survive. So travel agencies closed, tour guides, and so on. Now, with regards to the cross-border cooperation, what is important is when these people started working more closely together, they had more power in receiving subsidies and help for the development, because it always usually goes to either the capital or the regions that are already developed. But since they were collaborating, they managed to actually get more attention, recognize what exactly they need, how they want to get it. And what is also great is that they don't have a seasonal burden. So if in the coastal area you have tourists that come during a specific season, it's not necessary to come or avoid any season. It's better spread during the year. They've also looked into the key activities for the next 10 years. When I say next 10 years, it refers to a period from 2020 to 2030. And better connection of the destinations, offers of the cheaper energy, which I doubt will be the case now, given the current global context, to provide a richer tourism and cultural offer, themed routes. Themed routes are something that tourists are really looking for very much, and that's something that definitely this part of the world can provide. Then change in offer and promotion of particular heritage, as I mentioned, Ottoman, Christian, neoclassical, Jewish, ancient Greek, name it. So with regards to the gastronomy, with regards to the monuments, extremely rich, and people who with such a hospitality, it's really breathtaking. It's actually that you often enjoy the most. It's people where you travel. Then another very important issue is the management of the heritage sites, because you need someone who is a businessman, but also the person who is a professional both on the tourism and the preservation side. But what very often happens is, if they're only experts in preservation side, they hate tourism. They don't want to have too many visitors because that destroys the site. But in order to preserve the site, to raise funds, to make it important and to save it from a disaster, you actually have to bring the tourists while educating them. So in that perspective, it's important to have a management that has that is multi-skilled. Scarce human resources in the government when it comes to tourism, that's a problem. There is much more public and private sector collaboration than there was, but it still needs a lot more development. I mentioned different narratives with regards to ethnicities and mutual disqualifications of specific periods. So as I said, it's clinically interesting, and it's interesting. It can be interesting for the visitors, but there is a lack of education and training on the supply side. So that's something that that probably needs to be further developed. And as a demand-led tourism segment, heritage tourism needs a more collaborative approach. Antonina, am I respecting time, or am I enjoying my voice too much?
Oh, Maria, if you don't mind, I think we have like 22 minutes left.
Okay.
So what if, yeah, you have 2 minutes, and
I have three more slides, but if you tell me to stop, I will. So
I won't tell you that. Okay, take 2 more minutes just to kind of conclude. Right?
Okay, so further in my findings, I have to say that one of, as I mentioned, the ethnicities, I never managed to get any response from the Albanian ethnicity. And I think it would be important to have a more credibility of the study. It would be interesting to see their perspective on culture and heritage. No one ever responded. And as I said, they're not a part of the government. They have almost a parallel life in the country. So I couldn't get their answers on my interview questions. There are small grants that are available to develop products and themed routes, but for example, what would be their themed routes? Where would they get the grants from? Would it be from the government? Would it be from some external funds? That's something that also deserves more attention. Cultural tourism was never a separate branch for the national tourism strategy, so that also deserves to be recognized differently. Also, the fact that cultural tourism has a different meaning on the demand side and on the supply side. So a common doctrine would be good. And what I found interesting in my research was that the fact that people of Macedonia never referred to their country as North Macedonia. The name changed, but they never referred to it under that name. So it will be also interesting in terms of the tourism promotion and branding of this part, co-branding, to see how it will be labeled. Is it Macedonia under the same umbrella or different? We don't know that yet. Here you can see the image of the sign for the airport that had to be taken down because the Greeks were against it. So the airport in Skopje, in the capital of Macedonia, used to be called Alexander the Great, but Greeks disapproved it. So this had to be taken away, and now it's called International Airport in Skopje. And here we can see the warrior on a horse monument that indirectly refers to Alexander the Great, which is also annoying their Greek neighbors. So with regards to COVID, I mentioned one of the issues, one of the problems was the fact that a lot of people lost their jobs. In terms of other developments and other changes, there are so many things that I have found. There are so many discrepancies with the theory too, but nevertheless, it remains a very interesting destination to visit. It remains a place with a lot of potential. It's very good for the tourists because it's a relatively cheap destination. It's probably one of the cheapest in Europe, where you have excellent food. So the great gastronomy with the influences from all these different ethnicities. Very interesting from the culture and heritage perspective. Great from the climate part, and the fact that, as you know, Professor Nguyen, people, when they travel, they don't want to go and visit a small country in 7 days. They want to visit the country for 2 days, then the neighboring country for another 2 days, then another country for 3 days, because it makes them like they got the value for their money. So in this particular region, with the collaboration with Bulgaria, Albania, Greek Macedonia, that's exactly what they can do. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer. Let me just...
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. Big round of applause to Maria. Thank you for this presentation. Now, I mean, we're absolutely torn whether we go to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, or we go to Macedonia, Skopje. So that's right. Okay, I have Shanti that you have your hand up, but I've got Shelter and Sergio. Shelter and Sergio, would you like your questions to be still announced? We can take two.
Yes. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, Sergio,
yes.
we can.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the lovely presentation. I think I've never been to Macedonia, but I think today I can confidently say one or two things about it. But back to Vietnam, really, my question is more of an addition to what Dr. Sri said. I took an example of Botswana and South Africa. Botswana has collectivism, 100%. Purely they work on engagement. You have to agree on what's the next move and stuff like that collectively. South Africa, on the other end, comparatively works similarly because, well, we are essentially similar people, same people, similar cultures. And it all starts from the Ubuntu concept. Mm-hmm. But then you see Botswana has worked successfully with that concept, but South Africa not as successfully as Botswana. So my question to Doc is, do you think the problem there, it could be a level of education, or it could be more entrenched in shifting from socialist approach, their quote communism, to more a capitalist approach? What would be your comment on that? Why hasn't it worked for South Africa? It's worked for Vietnam, it's worked for Botswana. Similar concept, similar collectivism, but then the results are not the same. I hope I've asked it correctly.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. I think you know, the traditions play their role, its role in the society. I think communism just introduced to the Vietnam just about, I think about 70 years, but mainly in the north of the Vietnam. But in the south, the people live in, we got unified, and communism come to our region in 1975, which is about 47 years only. People still keep in mind about the traditions. I mean, even the people in the north. Traditions still play a key role in the way people think and behave. And I think the tradition help. People, although many people do not really like in terms of the politics, and I think that just a kind of group of people who really follow, but the majority of people still think about how to build their life the way they want, and I think that makes a lot of significant contribution to the way that we have at the moment. I could say that tradition is still very critical to Vietnamese.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, Dr. Tree. Shelter, I can't see you, but
here I am, Doctor.
Yes, now I can see you. Yes, do you still have your question? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after all the discussions by Doctor and my colleague from UBIS on Macedonia, I was just wondering whether I can still put my thoughts correctly, but I would attempt. First of all, I want to congratulate the two presenters, and I just want to say that I am a student at UBIS, and my attendance at this colloquium is a class assignment, and so I want my professor to know that I'm attending the class and also listen to my voice.
Shelter. So you're winning the points now, right? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, actually,
and the questions should be really good, I evaluate the quality. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Dr. Nguyen, my question goes to you. I am very happy you've actually elucidated the cultural dimensions and also given an insight into what happens in Vietnam. And I'm very particularly impressed with your presentation. I know countries are different. Probably there is no other country that looks like a Vietnam. There is probably 2 or 3 countries in the world that would do the cultural dimensions of Vietnam. When you look at it, I am speaking from Accra, Ghana, so I'm an African. I am from West Africa. One of the things which is common to the African is religion. And religion is kind of, I think it should become one of the cultural dimensions that you should be investigating because it cuts across all the societies of Africa. And it seems like we have put a lot of faith in religion to the extent that even some of the theories and knowledge that are available for improvement of businesses and entrepreneurship seem to be falling on the other side of the divide and looking rather on the side of religion. I don't know how religion plays a part in cultural dimensions in Vietnam. My question actually is about how is your estimation of religion having an impact on in a country, on the sub-region, with respect to trying to solve our economic problems, entrepreneurship, business, and that sort of thing, because religion seems to be playing a very, very big part, but doesn't seem like we're winning the battle against poverty and economic underdevelopment. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Senator, for your question. In Vietnam, we have what we call the triple religion. So what I mean by triple religion, so we have first Confucianism. So that is the first one, Confucianism. Then we have Taoism and Buddhism. So the 3 religions are combined all together historically and form the way we think. Confucianism talk to us about the hierarchy in the society, meaning that we have to respect the people at the higher level and respect the elder. Taoism is about the opposite, about the universe and so on. So we think that the way we live, we have to be balanced, between bad and good, and between high and low, and so on. We have to balance between ourselves and society. Buddhism is about helping others, so those are a kind of three religions mixed together and form the culture of the Vietnamese. And we are basically the agricultural country, and helping one another is necessary. And it is why people try to work hard to make their living, and at the same time we try to help others, so that the whole society will grow. And I think, in that sense, entrepreneurship come to Vietnamese. It's just a very natural, because we have to government are not there to help. Business is not there to help. So we have to try ourselves on every single opportunity in order to build our life. And I think that is a part of the culture. People just go out and work and then help each other. So I think religion in that sense contribute on the background of the society. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shelter, and thank you, Dr. Tree, for your answer. Dr. Shanti.
No, it's just that I just wanted to tell you that I grew up with Mother Teresa as an idol. And I was very surprised to hear that she was from North Macedonia, because we always refer to her as a straight saint from Albania. So thank you very much for clarifying that. Even now in Wikipedia, when I went back and checked.
He is ethnic Albanian, born in Macedonia. As I said, a lot of, almost the entire western part of Macedonia is where the ethnic Albanians live.
Okay. All right.
She was Catholic.
She was Catholic. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know. She was Catholic. She was the order of the Irish nuns who were in India for a very long time. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I didn't know.
Right. Well, actually, thank you both. In the chat, I see Carmela says that she didn't know that Alexander the Great, as well as Mother Teresa, they were actually born there. And that's what we are going to tell our children about.
The whole world, yeah.
Well, the whole world, and primarily our children. And Vincent is going to educate his son that when they go on holiday, they don't go to Greece only, because I believe that he studied about Greece at school, ancient world and stuff. But now Vincent is going to tell his son about Macedonia as well. And as a border country, neighbor country, absolutely exciting to visit with the heritage of so many nationalities and so many different countries and empires in one. And actually, Marija, that was absolutely fascinating, like the reconciliation of all those minorities, as you say, right? But all those being really proud of their culture, of their heritage, that must be really a challenge for the government in the country, and not only in respect to tourism, but I'm sure for, in relation to many other spheres of social life and economics in the country. So we have like 7 minutes left. So if we have another question from the audience, I would be absolutely happy. Hopefully any to Marija. Do we have people interested in tourism in particular? Okay, while people are thinking, I should say that, Marija, congratulations first on the graduation. Marija received her PhD not that long time ago. And I saw the presentation. Yes, absolutely, congratulations. And I saw these slides about the methodology Marija employed in her PhD thesis. And I'm sure that for UBIS D-based students, it will be insightful and interesting to have Marija to deliver us another presentation about the methodology. And she had a qualitative approach in her study that hopefully she would be kind to share with us and with our students, right? The methodology and yes, how. Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Toni, the fact that she did a qualitative study, I've done a doctorate, the fact that she did a qualitative study, kudos, because that's the most complicated and most difficult one to do. Kudos on that one.
Absolutely, Dr. Shanti, I agree with you. And Marija's approach is absolutely fascinating. Shanti, I saw the slides, and like theoretically, the conceptual and theoretical frameworks are really ones to share. So Marija, we really hope that it's not our last meeting with you, and maybe far from being the last. And now
Marija, this is Sean Josso. I think we're going to come find you to help us with dissertation readings. So start sharpening your pencils, okay? Very good.
You wouldn't believe that I really love dissertations. I've supervised more than 500 dissertations, and people So
You're on.
yeah, you
I'll
can
find you.
count on me, and I will be happy to share my experience as someone who has, okay, I supervised, but also when you write your own, and things that I couldn't share now because they were irrelevant. I'm talking about research, but really the process that can hopefully help the students, do's and don'ts, what you shouldn't be scared of, and what you should absolutely do from the very beginning.
Excellent, Marija, definitely. Monteng, please, the question. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm interested in the politics of Macedonia. The northern, that is the former Republic of Macedonia, Northern Macedonia, and wondering whether after the end of the Yugoslavian government, whether the multiple ethnicities, did you have problems between the ethnic groups as the political system changed?
Okay, I'm glad you all believe that I'm originally from Macedonia. It's not the case, but I'm glad that my passion about the subject made me look like I'm from Macedonia. So, I mean, I can say from my research and from being Yugoslav born, that all these republics that got the independence in 1990s had their political turmoils inside, because what used to be constitutive federal republic and what it was, the way that the politics in Yugoslavia worked was similar to what we have the confederation here in Switzerland. So there were there was a role of 8 different presidents, so every ethnicity was presented. You had 1 year an Albanian president, you had 1 year Albanian, I mean Albanian from Yugoslavia, 1 year Slovenian, 1 year Croatian, and so on. Now when all these countries got the independence, so all the ghosts of the past raised, also with the involvement from the outside. What I found particularly interesting in case of Macedonia in my research was that I found totally parallel tourism schools, universities that are financed by Turkish government, that have nothing to do with the state-based or the private Macedonia. They are funded by the Turkish government. Students get the scholarship from the Turkish government, but the content, the program contains the ideology that suits the Turkish government and their interest in expansion or their interest in having power in that part of the world still. So that's something, they have their separate conferences, because when I wanted to present my research at the conferences where it's relevant, I found that you have state universities or international journals or things that are going on. And then really like a parallel reality, you have those that are organized and funded by the Turkish government. So that's something that did not exist in Yugoslavia, but it does exist now. And Albanians are a very big and very united. They have something that is not particularly the characteristic of the Macedonians or Serbs or Bulgarians. Albanians are very united. They really work for a common interest. So they're not that involved in, again, in the life of the country itself. But for example, when there are elections, all the Albanians that live in Western Europe, and there are plenty in Switzerland, France, Germany, everybody flies back to the country to vote. So it's a serious business. And it's, you don't see that kind of, I wouldn't say that they're politically mature, that they know better than somebody else, but they listen to someone. So there is a different hierarchy, it's a different culture, it's a different, even if you look at the language, all the Albanians that live abroad, their children speak the Albanian. Macedonian, Serbian, Croatians who live abroad, kids are not that great. They do not really speak or write the language the same way that they do. So yes, there was a lot of political turmoil, not only with regards to the name with their Greek neighbor, but inside and it's still not being solved. The political parties that remain in power in Macedonia are mostly either pro-Serbian or pro-Bulgarian.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you for the question, and Maria, thank you for your answer. Unfortunately, time is up. Sean, I just want to say that I already have Maria's CV with me. So yes, Maria, you've been already invited, and we organized this methodology seminar for students. But before we break up, I would like to give you the taste of the next session on Sunday. As you may know, the 8th of March is the Women's Day, right, in the world. And I suggest, thank you, Dr. Shanti, I agree absolutely that I suggest that we celebrate women. So for the next couple, at least, of sessions, we are going to let remarkable women, and we, believe me, have plenty of them in UBIS, let them speak and express their minds and their concerns and their wishes with us. And the next session, we have absolutely remarkable women, the guests coming. I'll just share the screen just to show one who confirmed her participation. And that's this absolutely, I'm sure, remarkable lady, Patricia Bitar Sherfan, and she comes from Lebanon, and she's an editor-in-chief of a magazine called Home, where she covers all aspects of the Lebanese society, and that's the person we welcome. Let me put the brilliant image back. She's going to be one of the presenters, and the other one, not confirmed yet, so that's why I'm not saying the name, but is going to be the author of books and coming from Caribbean. So please spread the word and do come and join us next Sunday. And thank you very much, both of our speakers again. And we hope to see you again at our sessions, absolutely. And take the best care of yourselves and your loved ones. And I see you next Sunday. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, bro.
Marija, Dr. Tree, thank you so much.
Everyone, take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tony. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks to all.
Antonina.
Bye.
Bye-bye.